I would like to introduce first and call on the first presenter, Ms. Amukta Mahapatra. Let's give her a warm round of applause. Is a director of the SchoolScape Center for Educators based in India. And she is an independent consultant working with organizations including the government sector in India. She was involved recently in reviewing ABL and its variations in 7 states of India for UNICEF. While she worked with UNICEF earlier, she was part of the task force that brought out the quality package, which was initiated in 1,000 schools. And it was implemented in at least 13 states. And aside from that, she worked with concerns for working children and even nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize recently during its Panchayat to Fund program during the CWC. And she conducts 1-year and short-term teacher development program enabling teachers to work in elementary level and following the Montessori principles of pedagogy. So, friends, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's listen to our speaker for today.
Thank you. I hope you didn't get the impression that I was nominated. The organization CWC was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, which I worked for. I'm the director of SchoolScape. I started the Center for Educators. And the name SchoolScape, when you pronounce it very often in Indian languages, we add school escape. So which the hidden meaning is to escape from school, the way we know it. So my presentation, I've titled it as Citizens of Courage, because I feel right now, many nations, the situations that we are in is often in conflict, very situations which have conflicting situations in our countries. Also aggression, bullying, all that is part of our life, daily life, and for children too. And we need to have a kind of education, which we may call democratic education, as part of our daily life in the school. To this presentation, I bring my experience as a teacher, as a Montessori teacher for both the preschool and the elementary level. Also my work with the Krishnamurti philosophy, I hope some of you may know. J. Krishnamurti is a philosopher and runs schools. I was a teacher there. Also my work with UNICEF, and I worked with Tamil Nadu government trying to, and my team members are here, who we tried with the government to bring in quality education at the primary level using something which was available in a school called Rishi Valley for their satellite schools in the villages. That pedagogy and Montessori we put together, and we train the faculty of the diet. Every district has a training center. We train the diet faculty, and they in turn brought in something which we call ABL now in Tamil Nadu, and which has taken from Tamil Nadu. Other states have also learned about it. ABL meaning activity-based learning. I also bring to the presentation my association with the International Democratic Education Movement, and I feel a lot, there's a kind of a synergy between Montessori and democratic education, which we need to learn from. Montessori practitioners need to recognize that democratic practices are there in the pedagogy itself, and democratic education people need to look at Montessori and learn from it and to go a little deeper. So generally our associations with democracy, we think mainly of elections, voting, leaders, but it's not just these. And sometimes in schools we have student councils or we have a mock parliament, but I think democracy means a little more than that. So what does democracy mean in its principles? First, of course, that we've used it and we've heard it in the last 2 days, participation is important. And participation, I'll go into the classroom situation later. participation, and along with participation comes responsibility. I think I'd prefer to walk about a bit. Will I come forward? I can't see others. So along with participation comes responsibility, because I can't see that. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
Just let me
I can't see people at the back, yeah. And with participation and responsibility, will it come also, unless there's a choice available, there's no participation as such, because it's always dumped on the people. But if you need a choice, if you need participation, if you need responsibility, a choice has to be available. Along with that is also leadership. What kind of leadership, what is the nature of relationship? If in a democratic country or a situation, what we look for is people who are not authoritarian, but are holding maybe authority, but need not be feudal or like dictators. And of course, what is important is more than the structures. Very often we look at democracy as like only having structures, but the culture of democracy is important. And what that means we can look at a little later. To reflect all that, we need a structure, whatever it is for a nation or for a school or for whatever the unit is. It's important to look at the structure, but the structure is not the critical area. It has to reflect what we mean by democratic education, democratic culture. If we bring democracy, the idea, into the classroom, what does it look like? I feel participation means the individual, the group, and the collective. In mainstream schools, conventional schools, we only look at usually the kind of a herd teaching. It's not even a collective, because collective means there's a membership and there are some rules to it. But children are considered as a herd of sheep just to follow and do what others say. But here, if we have a democratic culture, whether it's Montessori or otherwise, we need to have situations where there is a possibility of a child learning individually, as a group, and as a collective. One school that I was principal of, and after a gap I had gone there, and the children didn't know how to work in a group. They knew very well how to work as individual and as a collective, and the whole class together or the whole school together, because they didn't have enough experience of work in a group. 3 to 4, they were embarrassed, they were shy. So what happens in a group, the nature of the group is important, the nature of experiencing what a collective means, because all of us as people, we are individuals, we learn individually or we act individually. We also act as a group, and we also act as a collective, either as a nation or as a Rotary Club or whatever you're members of. So all these experiences are rather important right from childhood. I'm just doing that a little bit in detail. The next is responsibility, which goes with participation. When there's a choice and there's a participation, responsibility kind of follows. It's not dumped on them. It's not something that the teacher gives to the child, but it is when the environment is such, when it is democratic, children and adults take it on rather naturally. So we have also the choice. Choice would mean choice of activities, choice of materials, and also where to sit and whom to associate with. It's not enough just for the teacher or for the adult in the environment to have an array of materials and say this is what you have to do. It's the child you trust the child so that the child can choose. Once when we did what I talked about, the faculty training and the district institutes of training, we set up a demo class for the trainers to observe. And it was a nearby government school. So we got the children there and we gave them some rules to follow, very few rules. And I said, they all sat down the first day. We got about a mixed age group from class 1 to 5. And we told them, we have some rules to follow as anywhere else. If we play a cricket match, cricket is popular in India. So if we play cricket, there are some rules If you go to somebody's house, there are some rules. So here too, we have some rules. So I told them 3 rules. I said, all this material belongs to you, and you can choose with your heart. Go around, see, look at all the materials and choose, and then work with it as much as you want and put it back. The 3rd rule was to put it back where they took it from. So these children who were all the time, their whole school life, told not to touch things, were asked to touch and feel and work with things. So when that happened, they were very quiet for a while. They didn't touch anything. But we had to encourage them to touch. And once they started, for 3 hours, we didn't look up. Everybody was busy. And this happened all the time, not just once. Whenever we did this demo class and we gave the right for the children to work with all the materials, that spontaneity in them, they worked right through. So that's important in a sense when you have a choice, and that's natural to children. It's not something that we can infuse them with, and we have to take that forward. So you can look at also what we mean by culture is to have a variety, to have diversity and flexibility that we are talking about today. It doesn't have to be the same. It is the reverse of what happens in conventional schools. There they're looking for sameness, looking for standards which are uniform. Here we're looking for a variety, looking for different kind of a diversity and addressing diversity. And culture also means to feel successful and to feel right about oneself. Otherwise, in a school situation, a normal conventional school, children are always made to feel they're not right. Something is not right. Schools are meant for children, but they're not made for children. And that's the trauma that we earlier heard about it. Those are trauma situations, but every day is a trauma for children because they're told they're not right and something is wrong with them. And they can always do better. How? Nobody tells them. So that addressing diversity, addressing children as they are, and for children to feel good about themselves and successful, that's the culture of democracy in a way. And along with that comes also a rigor. It's not just do as you say, do what you like, but there's a rigor to that, and the children lay down that rigor even for themselves, which would all lead to a kind of a calmness, a kind of a confidence, and a clarity of thought. So just to an idea about individual, group, and collective. So it's not just easy. I was telling you about the children have a rigor for themselves when you open out the environment to them. This is an example from activity-based learning when the Tamil Nadu government scaled up what they had tried out in the municipality of Chennai in a city. They scaled it up across the state to 37,000 schools. We did a baseline at the beginning of the academic year in June 2007, and at the end of the academic year 2008, we did a kind of end of the year review, evaluation, in 3 subjects, Tamil, Maths, and English. And you can see that in every category, whether it's gender, boys and girls, rural and urban, or communities, they all did much better in the end of the year. You may think that that's a normal course of in 1 year, that things will improve, but you can see from our achievement tests, even what was spoken about in the morning session, the first session, that the 5th standard children cannot often read the 2nd standard level work. But here, within a year, they were able to read and write and improve in all areas. Tamil, the local language, mathematics, and English. We can go deeper into this, but we can do that later at your own time. Some of these things we have talked about for it to have an impact on the classroom, and from the classroom to move out and impact society. I feel many frameworks need to be aligned. One is the child's potential, what the child comes with. Child is not an empty vessel, not an empty pot for us to fill in. It's not a tabula rasa. So what the child comes with, the potential, that we have to take into consideration the culture of the school, of course, the pedagogy, and the systemic structures which the government or many schools have, and also the constitution of the nation. All these, in a way, have to be aligned together. As of now, we are nations. Maybe, say, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we were all not nations. We don't know what will happen tomorrow, but as of now, we are a nation, and most of the countries have a constitution. So all these need to be kind of aligned and put together. Can I have that? All these ideas have been worked through quite deeply in their own ways. Pedagogy has been worked through till Thy Kingdom Come, and democracy also has been written about, talked about, discussed. The constitution, of course, and the child's potential. A lot of people have worked in the last 100 years about what the child is about. But all these need to be kind of aligned, because very often, I mean, I'll talk about India, we're quite comfortable that principles go one way and practices go another way. We are quite comfortable. It doesn't bother us. But how do we get principles and practice put together? So a kind of an alignment of all the frameworks so that the impact is there. Otherwise, very often, pedagogy is authoritarian, and all that authoritarian kind of culture will bring about our small dictators, little dictators who will when they grow up or even in school, start bullying, being aggressive, etc. But if we have a democratic culture, because the Constitution says so and our culture says so, so we need to have that kind of a pedagogy. If we have that kind of a culture, if we have that kind of a pedagogy, I feel these are the kind of classrooms that we may have. So there's movement in the class. Sorry, I don't have pictures, but all of you can imagine. No rigid seating. Otherwise, the children are pinned down to their seats. They can't move, they can't talk. And that itself, the freedom to move is not there. What else are we restricting? Very often we do an exercise with teachers where 5 minutes they are not allowed to talk, they're not allowed to move, and they're not allowed to ask questions. In the next part of the exercise, when they're allowed to ask questions and they said move about, they don't. Just that 5 minutes in that exercise, when they can't move and they can't talk, they can't ask questions, that influences them in the latter half of the exercise. Can imagine the harm done to children in schools where for years they're not allowed to talk and move for years to come. Materials, of course, this is the kind of a changed classroom that we would like to see in every school. Also the children, recently when doing the ABL review, went around to rural schools, faraway schools in rural areas and in slums. And we saw that the children, because of the changed culture, changed practices, they were feeling free, natural. I was a new visitor, but they were talking confidently to me. There's a big study done and it was presented recently. So you can look it up later. And they're hungry to learn and thirsty to know. Yeah. Teachers too, there was a big influence. They were much better. The geography of the classroom changed. Teacher was not at the head of the class. Teacher was with the children. This geography of the class influenced the chemistry between the teacher and the child. There was a bonding, and the relationship between the teacher and the child was amazing. Children could touch the teacher. Earlier, they were kept at a distance. And teachers too were able to discuss and debate about the current issues in education. Earlier, they were only told what to do and they stuck to that. So we talked about, I think, in earlier presentations about how parents are important and the community. In India, there's something called a village education society and a village education committee, which from the Right to Education Act has given even further importance to. And these are the things that the community can be involved if they're done in the right way. And the panchayat is important in Karnataka, one of the states in India. Panchayati Act has come into being, giving more powers to the panchayat, which is the local government. And so that is something that the village education committees, in which where the parents are the most important partners, can have a say also. The teacher's role, of course, one has to, that's the question and that's a challenge in a sense ahead of us, that what is the understanding teachers have of children, what is the understanding teachers have of learning, what do we mean when we say individual learning, can teachers plan for group work, can they track children, and also how they can involve parents and community in a deeper way, not just in a mechanical way so that they sign the minute book. The systemic kind of challenges ahead are to make training for teachers participatory, because right now, again, it's rather hierarchical, and the hiatus is there between what the teachers are told and what is happening in classrooms, or what should happen in classrooms. And so that's important. We started that in 2000, some years ago, and some of the institutes have taken that up, but there's a long way to go. The other idea of innovation is, where I think even here we're looking at innovation for bringing the last 20% in. But if we think of innovation as for the 80, for the majority, the 20% also will come in and make it 100%. I feel we are looking only at innovation for the 20, not for the whole. And we have to, of course, look at the quality of learning for all, the supervisory structure and the academic structure. I would like to leave you with this last slide, that we are looking at children, either they're mostly acted upon, but can we see them as actors, see them as constructors of their own learning, constructors of their own baggage of knowledge. So they need to be active, they have to be engaged, involved. I feel we rather underestimate children quite drastically, and we don't allow them to be the actors that they need to be in their own learning and in their own life. That's important, and I think that's the last three areas that we need children to give them the opportunity to do so, and they can be reflective and arrive at a conceptual clarity. Otherwise, we're only leaving them with some mechanical kind of rote learning and not taking them to the conceptual understanding. Last one. So the path forward would be to sustain quality when we achieve it in whichever unit, whether it's a school or a district or a state, to maintain that sustain that quality over space and time. Yeah, thank you. And then maybe we could have peace and happiness. Thank you.